Hey guys, welcome to 5th Street Fab. Today's video, we're going to be dealing with outside corner aluminum and fillet welds on aluminum. Alright, let's get to it. So the first step in cleaning these is, these have been sheared. So I got to take that edge, let's see, and I'm going to hit it all on the sander. And then I'm going to run a file over it and knock down all the corners. Alright, now they're all sanded. Just got to knock them down with the file. Now doing this is just for the ultimate clean, for the best weld that you can get. Now like, even most weld tests, I've never gone this far. It's usually just clean them up with the wire brush, tack them together, clean them again, and then go to town, and that's good enough. But this I'm just showing you for the ultimate clean on aluminum. Now I'm going to wipe them down with 70% isopropyl alcohol. Don't use that 90, it leaves a film on it. So I'm just going to wipe it down, just basically where I'm going to be wire brushing. And this gets all the stuff on the surface off, so that when you're using your wire brush, it doesn't embed the material down in there. Now I usually start up on edge like this, and I'm going like a side-by-side motion, kind of like I did with the file, and you can watch. Let's see if you can see. You can see the color difference here versus where I haven't got it, and that's one way to tell that you've knocked off that oxide layer. Makes it real smooth when you're welding it. So the more cleaning you do, the smoother your weld is, the easier it is to weld, the cleaner it is, it looks, and smoother too. Once I've got that whole edge done, then I turn it, and you're going to start, and you're just putting light pressure on it. And you'll feel it start to cut, like it's digging, and that means you've broken through that oxide layer. You can also see the color difference, and anywhere where you see the darker silver, that's where it hasn't broken through yet. So you can hit that from the side, and it'll clean that up like that. So then I just go through, do the whole thing front and back, especially if you're going to weld on the back side. One other thing, this brush is only for use on aluminum. It's a stainless steel wire brush, and I've only used it on aluminum. All my small ones are my aluminum ones. So one other thing, with aluminum, when you're welding, the heat that it does, it really sucks everything in. So if you have something that's painted, you really want to go back about an inch. It's going to burn up anyways right here. But if it's like this close, it's going to suck it straight into the weld. Now you can see the two spots where they've been cleaned, both sides, edge. Now I'm going to clean those spots with alcohol before I put them together. A lot of people use acetone, but this stuff sticks on your hands, it's nasty. So I like alcohol because it cleans just as good for me. And it dries super fast, so it's not on your hands for long. Normally when I'm putting pieces together, I just hold them up to each other and tack it with a spool gun. But I don't have spool gun, and I don't have my MIG welder set up for aluminum right now. Since that's the case, I'm gonna hold everything together so I can get it with the TIG. And you want this valley right here when you're welding, especially aluminum, because it uses all that to strengthen up the weld, and then you don't have to use as much heat. It can cut in there and it's not going to be as high humped. If you have it like this, you're not getting much strength, and if you want full penetration, it's going to need a lot of heat, and then it's going to have a really high crown on it. On something this long, you really need to put another tack here in the center, especially on 1/8 inch. Now if you don't want any burn through, a good idea is to keep a bar like this behind it when you weld it. You clamp it down on both sides, and that'll keep it at a perfect 90. So if you have C-channel or something like that, even if it's a thick thing of aluminum behind it, it's not going to weld itself to it if it's something thin. Then we're going to wipe it down. Good measure. And I cleaned off my filler before I started. Just wiped it through that. I don't have anything to wipe it down any better than that. I've got 200 amps, machine's maxed out. It's on AC, no pulsar. My frequency's all the way at 200 just because I haven't really messed with it. I'm always on 60 hertz at work, so I figured since I got this, might as well use it. I'm on about 40% AC balance. My post flow is only about 6 seconds because I only need enough post flow on aluminum to where my tungsten will stay nice and silver. Anything more than that, you're wasting gas. It's not like steel or aluminum. I've got 15 CFH when it's running, and I'm just controlling the amperage with that little crappy pedal. Here's a quick tip. If you're having trouble putting your tungsten back in, a lot of times if it's too loose, it won't go in. So just tighten it down slightly until it'll go in, then you're good. So on this, I'm going to keep about a stick out somewhere around there, 1/4 inch or so. Number 7 gas lens, 3/32 tungsten is what I like to run for most things. This is lanthanated. Serrated splits on you. Green tungsten balls up way too much. This is just about right for me. Alright, so what I'll do is I like to run a ball on my tungsten. So what I'm going to do is come over here, find my balance, crank it all the way down. So some machines it'll be opposite. If you don't have AC balance control, what you can do is either flip it to, what is it, DC positive? I can't remember, but basically you're going to switch your ground with your TIG torch, swap them, and then hit it and ball up your tungsten that way. But since I have AC balance control, I just turn it all the way down. Get a thick piece of material, and I'm just going to slowly work it with the foot pedal. So there's the ball. Not quite the width, a little smaller, and when you have a machine that you can keep a sharper tip, I like to have a smaller one like this. If I'm running like the old synchro waves like at work, I'll ball up the entire piece to where it's wider than this. One of the most important parts is being able to prop and hold steady the whole time. So I'll stack whatever I have to a lot of times to get onto things. If not, and it's something awkward, I'll just prop with my pinky and do what I can, and you can drag with your pinky and still stay really smooth. But I try to get it to where my palm can rest right on there, and then I can slide nice and smooth. And I'll clamp these to parts too, usually C-channel. So here's what the finished bead looks like. So each time I'm basically just waiting for it to fill all the way up, adding my filler, scooching, and I'm just doing to the edge of the puddle each time, and that makes this real consistent bead. So there's a lot of different ways you can hold your TIG torch when you're welding. So I always like to wrap the cord around the back, and it's on my opposite shoulder, basically the shoulder I'm feeding filler with. It's resting on that, coming down over here. And this is usually because I run a water-cooled torch, and they're a lot heavier than this air-cooled one. So anyways, you can either hold it to where this cord is wrapped around the outside and comes in like that, or you can hold it like that to where it's on the inside. And it just depends on what you're trying to weld. Like this, you can weld like that, or like that. It depends. So if I'm doing like a pipe and I'm going to be rolling my hand, I'll have it on the outside so that by the time I'm over here, it's not messing with me. If I'm like this and I start coming in, especially with the water-cooled line, it's going to be putting a lot of pressure right here, and it's going to keep your torch away. So before I start, I'll just hold it both ways, see which way feels more comfortable. So, and then I like, if I'm doing aluminum, I try and hold it as far back as I can, especially on an air-cooled one, because this will get super hot on an air-cooled. On a water-cooled, it'll stay perfectly fine, but if you're this close, your hand's still only this far away from aluminum, and you're usually running 200, 250 amps, and so that gets hot fast. But if I'm down here like this is how I welded it. See how I have a few inches before it starts burning? And then I'll wear a TIG finger too, a lot of times, and rest on that, and that'll help glide you along too, and it keeps you from getting burnt. Now that's the setup I have right now. I have probably, I don't know, maybe 3/8 of an inch stick out on a number 7 gas lens, and I'm running 15 CFH. I don't run very much gas on aluminum. If you start running 20 and above, it starts graying out your weld and it looks super frosty, and also your arc will start dancing, especially if you're only running like 60 Hertz. So for this weld, basically all I'm doing is letting it puddle up and pool, and once it soaks in top, bottom, and you can see it in the crack. There's no horseshoe on it. Once it's in that crack, I'll dab, move forward, and each time you're doing that, you're wanting it just on that edge of filling in, so it fills in every time you move it, but it's not like super hot. I don't know how to, you're just right on that verge, and that'll leave it to where you don't really burn through on the other side, but it's still in there nice and tight. You can see if you look close that it's in there, just right at the edge coming through, and that's what you want. If you're new, put a piece of backing back there so you don't burn through. But now I'll show you how to get full penetration on these ones, or on this. So like when I'm doing fuel cells and stuff, I want full penetration all the way through. And basically all I'm going to be doing is I'm going to let it pool up, go to just where I was saying, you know, it's starting to get in there nice and deep. I'm going to give it just a tiny bit more pedal than normal and just wait. And that whole puddle will just drop through. You'll see it just kind of like in the reflection just go and kind of sink. And that's when I know that I can start moving and dabbing. And then the whole time I'm going to be keeping it to where I can see it drop when I move forward, and then I add filler and it pushes it back up. If you start adding filler and it just stays sunken, you're too hot. You gotta back off the pedal until it's right at that verge. So this is the one where I let it drop in and then started moving, but I was making sure that it was pumping up as I was moving forward. So this is the full penetration weld. And there's the penetration. There's the non-penetrated, full penetration. This is what I do for fuel cells or things that really are critical. This is for things where it's like shelves and you can't get to the or you don't want the inside to be nasty, or you need something to be able to sit up in there. I'll run this bead and then my strength bead. And when you're doing this one, you can weld out like a full box like this and it won't overheat the box very much. But like this one, when I do fuel cells or whatever, after one pass I air it down with an air compressor before I do the next side. Otherwise it's going to start graying out and get too hot. So I welded over that side where it wasn't full penetration, just so you can see. There's the penetrated side. So I laid down that fillet weld. And this is what I do when both sides have to be nice. I'll weld the outside and then the inside. So So you can kind of see that that welder's pretty messed up from all this little weird bubbles. It's just, the cleaning action's just junk on it. Anyways, what I did was I got this tungsten nice and close, and I just gave it enough juice to where it would puddle together, and basically if I left that there I could just flow straight down this joint and it would weld itself, but it wasn't so much that it's burning through on the backside. So you want to find that sweet spot, just like I was saying on the open corner joint. So you start it up, get that puddle to where it'll flow, and then you add some filler, scooch forward, and that whole puddle should run it with you. It should, I can't think of, basically it should be nice and smooth up in that corner. And that's how you know you have a tight enough arc with your tungsten to the workpiece and enough heat. So if you're not getting that, either move closer or add a little more heat to it. Generally, it's that you're too far, and you can listen and hear the difference. It'll be real loud, you know, kind of whiny, especially on 60 hertz, you can really tell. And then when you get close, it'll be nice and smooth. And then if you're too close, it'll make this like noise, like basically it's touching the material. It's like and doing that. So I'm doing the same thing I did on the open corner, except on these I've found that if you dip, wait just a second, not even quite a second, but after you dip, instead of moving immediately like I do on the open corners, on this I'll just sit there and then I'll scooch, dip, scooch, dip, scooch, dip, scooch, dip, scooch, dip, and it's kind of like that the whole time. So add that filler, wait a second, move, because if I don't wait a second, it V's out, and which is fine. It means it's penetrated in there, but you don't get these pretty dimes. Basically, you get it like a roll of V's almost. And then at your stops, always add a few extra drops of filler while you're slowly adding or letting off the pedal. That wraps up today's video. Like I said, this TIG welder's on its last leg. It was really hard to get those welds to come out alright. So it's probably going to be the last video for a while until I get a new TIG to do any aluminum. But if you do have questions, leave them in the comments and I'll try to explain or get through as many as I can. Anyways, like if this video helped you, subscribe if you're not. That way you can check out all of my welding videos. Hit that bell, that way you get notified every time I upload one. And check out some of the other ones that I already have. Alright you guys, you have a good one.